Welcome, everyone, to the Conversations with Ivanova Supported Decision Making discussion. I am so glad I seen people joining on. Just a couple of housekeeping things before we get into this epic discussion. This webinar will be captioned, and so if you need captions, you just press on the enable captions on your Zoom. It should be in that little bottom toolbar that you have. If there is any technical issues with the captioning, you will also be able to access captioning by the chat Typewell website that will also be captioning it. That's not likely to happen, but just in case, that is that option. And also, if you want to ask a question, there are several ways that you can do that. So if you look at the little toolbar at the bottom of your screen, you should see a chat box. That is a great way to ask a question, is using the chat box. If you can't use the chat box, if you prefer to use your voice, just go to participants and use the little raise hand emoji, and I will be able to see your little hand and allow you to ask. I'll pick out your name and you can ask your question. First, though, let's introduce our epic advocate and disability rights attorney and policy person, David Lord. Welcome, David. Can you just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Well,
And then I'll go into our first question.
well, thank you very much, Ivanova. I'm so pleased to have this chance to talk with you and talk with you with a bit of an audience this time instead of just chatting. So that'll be great. I know this is a topic you're really interested in as well. I'm the public policy director at Disability Rights Washington, and I've been doing that for a long time. And I'm actually going to be retiring at the end of this month, November 1st. But I'll still be around some. I'll be working some off and on for DRW, kind of on a part-time basis thereafter. And we'll have a new policy director who some of you know, Daria Farivar, who I'm really excited about. What I'm doing now, though, is I'm the public policy director at DRW. And if you don't know what DRW is, you can go to our website, Disability Rights Washington. Just type that in and you'll find it. So anyway, pleased to be here. Thanks.
Thank you, and it is so good for you to be here, David. Let's get into it. So our first question that I have for you is, what is supported decision making? What is a good way you can summarize that for everyone?
Okay. Well, I'll summarize that and I'll give a little bit about it. But before I do that, I always do this whenever I'm talking about something that involves something with the law, and that's that I'm a lawyer, but this little bit of information I'm giving you is not legal advice. Legal advice is when you sit down with somebody and you find out the facts of everything they want to do, and then you give them advice that specifically is tailored to them. And I'm not doing that today. I'm giving you general advice about, not general advice, general information about a topic that I think should be. So I always tell people that because I don't want you to go out and act on what I do based on what I said and think that's enough. You need to take a look at it yourself, and if necessary, if you need a lawyer, you can go see a lawyer. But anyway, that's my little warning there. But to answer your question, what is supported decision making? Supported decision making is a process that is now part of Washington law that allows a person to set up an agreement, and that agreement should be recognized by people, and it's an agreement that they have set up for how they're going to make decisions. And this is something that's available for people, and it can be a real useful thing for people who have some challenges to their ability to make decisions. They have some what they call capacity challenges. And for those people, they can, if they want to set up an agreement like this, they can do it. It's not a guardianship. And I'll talk maybe a little bit later about what the difference between the two. But for now, what it is it's a process where you get together with some people that you trust. They're called your supporters. Written agreement that is specifically about what you want them to do to help you make decisions. And you can specify what kinds of decisions you want to make. Maybe that's financial decisions, maybe that's medical decisions, maybe that's something else. And then I'll talk a little bit more later about what a supporter's job is then. But that's what it is. That's the idea. And I'm just a couple more things in background. This started out in the law in Texas in 2015. And it's spread around. Now there's like 7 or 8 states before Washington that have adopted this. We've adopted it in the last legislative session. It will be effective, the law will be effective a year from this New Year's. That is the 1st of January 2022. But that doesn't mean you can't make your own supported decision-making agreement right now, and there is a form for that, and we can talk about that. It's just that's when the law goes into effect. Okay.
That's great. Thank you. So tell me more, like, what is the difference between supported decision making and guardianship?
Well, there's, I'm going to start out with the most important and most profound difference, which is that in a guardianship, a person will be losing some of their rights. Somebody else will have the rights. The guardian will have the rights. That is, they'll have the responsibility. Actually, it's your rights, but they have a responsibility to make sure that they get paid attention to and they make decisions on your behalf. And that's what the guardian does. So, but you don't have that prerogative anymore. You don't have that right anymore after a guardian, whatever it says in the guardianship papers, you're going to lose that. In supported decision making, you don't lose any rights. You keep your rights. So that's a big difference right there. You keep your rights and nobody else gets the right to do anything. You're still the decision maker after you make a supported decision-making agreement. That's a big difference. Another one is that a finding in guardianship that you don't have what they call capacity. That is, that they sometimes talk about in terms of competency, like you're not able to do something, and that's a finding. A court, the judge actually decides that you don't have the ability maybe to make your medical decision, make your financial decisions, or whatever it is. That doesn't happen in supported decision making. And in fact, you need to be able to have enough ability to make decisions that if you had the right support, you could make them. So it's like that. So it's for people who've got some questions about their ability to make the decision, or maybe people aren't respecting it, they can with the supported decision making agreement. So that's a big change. Then there's some other differences there. Another one is that you have a court involved. That is, you have a judge and the court involved when you support decision making, or excuse me, when you set up a guardianship. You don't have that with supported decision making. There's no court involved. It's just with guardianship. So that's a big difference. Another difference is that you can change a supported decision making agreement anytime you want. You can revoke it. You can say, I don't want this anymore. Guardianship, it's not like that. The court has to make a decision about whether they're going to change it or that. There are a lot. You can see there are a lot of differences.
Yeah.
You have to make reports regularly to a court if you have a guardianship. You don't have to report to anybody with the supported decision-making agreement. So that's a requirement. Now that can be a good thing or a bad thing depending upon how things go. Sometimes that can also mean there's more accountability. Somebody maybe is, if the judges are paying attention and if there is a good process. That is not there in supported decision making. Let's see. And one more thing I want to say that's important. Guardianship right now, before they set up a guardianship, you're supposed to look at whether or not there are less restrictive alternatives that can be used. So those are things like a power of attorney, or maybe a trust, or maybe a payeeship might be less restrictive than the guardian. That's a requirement in the law. Well, the law has now changed to include support decision-making agreements. And it more, there's a actually says in the law, you need to look at whether or not the judge needs to decide that support decision-making agreement's not enough to take care of what you need. So they actually have to take a serious look at it before they create a guardianship. That's starting in 2022. So those are some differences. There are more, but those are ones that come to mind.
Awesome. Thank you, David. Who gets to make the decisions in a supported decision making scenario?
Well, it's really important because the decision is made by the person with a disability. So if you can think about it this way, with the supported decision-making agreement, and some people have had person-centered planning and they know how this works, but if you haven't, the idea is that you're going to have a meeting, you'll have a meeting, you'll get a group of people together, or maybe it's just one, depends on how you want to set it up, but you can have one or more people that you've decided are going to be your supporters. And so those people get together and you decide, you think about what you can, first of all, you have to decide that you want to do that. You want to have an agreement that you need some help with your decision making. And then you ask the supporters to give you that assistance, and they agree to it, and they agree to it in writing. That's another thing. So the supporter will actually agree that they're going to help you out with whatever it is. And then there'll be a process that you actually go through where you actually formally sign the agreement, where people are agreeing that they're going to help. And then you notarize that, and you'll need a couple of signatures. You'll need a couple of people to sign that agreement. But through all that process that I just described, the person that's going to make the decisions is the person with a disability. It isn't going to be the supporter that I just described. They're going to agree to help you with stuff, but they're not going to make those decisions. You're going to keep making those decisions, and they're going to help you. They're going to help you figure out, find the information that you need and so forth, but you'll make the decisions. So that's really important. I would say that one thing that people sometimes ask is, well, what about a power of attorney? I've heard of that. That's something sort of like this in some ways, and it can be, but with a power of attorney, you're giving somebody else the authority to act for you, not with support decision making. You still are the person that has to make the decisions.
Now I'm having trouble unmuting myself. Sorry about that. Next question will be, and just so that everyone is able to hear it, just try speak loudly. Project, and
Okay.
sometimes people get closer to your microphone. That helps too.
I'll do that. You'll see my face a little bigger.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, David.
Also try to slow it down a little bit too. I talk fast.
So, what is the role of a supporter in a support decision-making situation?
Okay, the supporter's role, remember, the person that's going to help you out is to understand the options and make sure that you understand what your options are for making a decision. Whenever you make decisions, do you understand all the options? Do you understand what could happen, the consequences of your decision? Do you understand the responsibilities you might be taking on if you're making a decision to do something? So basically that kind of thing. They'll also help you get information that you need to make the decision. So if you're making a decision about, a common one is like you're making a medical decision. Well, the doctor may use a bunch of language that you don't understand unless you have a medical degree. The supporter can help you figure out what they're saying and what does that mean, and maybe get the doctor to slow down, and maybe get the doctor regular English, or whatever language you speak. So I think those are a couple of things. Another thing, and this is an important one too, is a supporter can assist somebody else in understanding and respecting your decision, understanding what your decision is and paying attention to it. So sometimes when you go in, for example, to make a medical decision and the doctor's there, if the doctor will listen to you, then you'll be able to make the decision. But if the doctor just takes one look at you and thinks he's got a disability, he probably won't understand this, then the doctor will think you don't have the ability to make the decision. But if you have a supporter there, that supporter can help make sure that it's clear what you can understand, what you do understand, and make the doctor pay a little bit more attention. So that's the kind of thing that can be really helpful. And then you can still maintain your ability to make the decision. So some other things that a supporter can do is they can help make sure that you get accommodations for your disability if you need them in order to be, able to make your decisions and make them stick. They might do, and this is something that I have heard about from talking to people I know in Massachusetts and Texas and other places where they're doing supported decision making. Sometimes there are other techniques that a supporter will use so that the person understands what it is that's at stake and what the decision is. So they might do some role playing. They might give some examples. They might speak a bit slower and use plain English. They might do, they might repeat. They might do some repetition. They might take enough time that you have that you can ask the questions that you need to ask and understand whatever the decision is. So that may require quite a few meetings, may require a bit more time, but that's what happens. So in order to do that, a supporter has some responsibility to know the person that they're working with and that they've agreed to help, and they need to know how that person communicates. They need to obviously give the person the time that they need.
That's great.
Yeah.
It looks like we have some questions from the audience, David, and so I'm going to let Courtney ask her question to talk. Okay, Courtney, you can ask away. You just need to unmute yourself and you can ask your question.
I don't really have a question, but I did make a decision about something, and my dad doesn't like it. And he really supports me a lot. And I am getting married, and I have this backup plan, and my dad doesn't like it. And it's my decision of what I want to do. So that's why I brought this up, because I want to lose my military benefits so I can actually go to a different hospital. And my dad doesn't like that whatsoever. He doesn't respect it.
So thanks for that comment. And as I said before, I don't give people legal advice on what they do and what they don't do, but thanks for that comment, because that illustrates, some of the kinds of concerns that you can have to deal with, where you have one set of things you want to do and somebody else who maybe has a lot of effect on your life has a different idea.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your question, Courtney, and your comment. Your perspective is really important. Looks like I'm going to look through the chat here. We have some questions. We got one from Luke Berman. You said you need an agreement notarized. Do you need an attorney to draft the agreement, like you would need a power of attorney, guardianship, or will health directive?
Well, and actually, no, you don't need a lawyer necessarily. You might want to have a lawyer involved. This is really new, so the lawyer probably isn't going to know much about it. Just got passed, so it's pretty new. But I will say this, You don't have to have a lawyer every time that you want to do some of the things that commonly people use lawyers for. Sometimes people, if they have a lot of money involved in something, will want to have a lawyer involved in setting up a power of attorney. But frequently people don't use a lawyer for that. And similarly with this, you don't necessarily have to do that. There is a form, and I think there's going to be a slide later on that will give you that, but there's a form that was put into the law that's a really easy to fill out form. That is available through Northwest Justice has a thing called Washington Law Help, and there'll be a slide later on that we'll talk about where you can get that form and also some information, more information about support decision making. So the answer to that question, that was kind of a long-winded way of saying, no, you don't have.
Awesome. Thank you for asking that question, Luke. Another question that we got from P2P, parent to parent, King County is, can you talk a little more about how the court decides if an individual is a candidate for supported decision making?
Actually, I can't talk much about that yet because the law is so new that we don't know what courts are going to do with it. Here's what's going to happen, though, kind of generally based on what I read in the law. Right now, when somebody decides they want to set up a guardianship and they think somebody needs a guardian, they will what they call petition the court for a guardianship. And then they'll appoint somebody that's not a guardian, but it's called a guardian ad litem. And that person's job is to be an investigator for the court and figure out whether or not this person really needs a guardian. And also, one of the jobs of that person is to figure out whether or not they've really looked at alternatives to guardianship. Have we really, or do we really need a guardianship here, or could we use alternatives? Would a power of attorney do it, or a payship, or something else? Or it's not even incapacitated. But look at whether or not alternatives would work. They will look at whether or not supported decision-making will work. It is not clear how the people that are doing that, they used to be called guardians ad litem. Now they're called visitors. And what they are is they're going to go in and they're going to meet with the person with a disability, and they're going to have some discussion with them about, and from that, based on that and reports that they get, they'll make a decision about whether or not some of the other alternatives might work, one of those being powers of attorney. Now, one of the things I want to make sure of, I want to make sure that those visitors understand what support decision-making is. So I'm going to be trying to provide some training and get information out there, and I'm hoping that there'll be other trainings that will be available so that they understand that. So that was another long-winded way of saying the visitors who make those recommendations to the court will get some training on that, and they'll make it based on that.
Awesome. Another question that somebody put in chat, Benjamin Moore, what are the finer differences between guardianship and having a power of attorney?
Thanks. That's an excellent question, and it's asked very often because people can make their power of attorney say a whole bunch of things if they want. They can make a pretty good sized plan in their power of attorney about what they want if they want to do it. So in effect, you could do something like a supported decision-making plan in your power of attorney if you wanted to. Now, that's not what people generally do, and I'm not aware of any forms that really support that. So that's a little different. But the big difference, and I mentioned this earlier, the big difference is when I set up a power of attorney, I'm giving somebody else authority over me. They have the ability to do things on my behalf. That doesn't happen with supported decision making. You don't give anybody else any authority to make decisions for you. You keep your decision. That's the big difference. For finer points, I guess the finer points are that as they're actually applied, they don't involve all the stuff I was talking about in terms of meeting and having developing a great big plan and all that. that's something that it might happen, but it could happen, but it doesn't generally happen. Generally, people just fill out a little form on power of attorney and send that in. So.
Great. Let's see if there's any more questions here. It doesn't look like there are, so I'm gonna.
Can I mention something here about supporters since we're
Sure.
on that topic? I forgot to mention this. You know, there's people under the law, this new law that's been set up, who can't be a supporter with a support decision-making agreement. And this is something that was put in the law as there are several things that are put in to try to protect against exploitation, abuse, or people kind of doing things, they call it self-healing, doing things because they want it and not because somebody else wants it. They want to protect against that. So the people that can't be a supporter are a person who employs you or is one of your employees. So if you happen to be a person with a disability who employs somebody or is employed by somebody, that person can't be your supporter. I should say, except if they're in your immediate family. So if it's, you know, your parents or your siblings or whatever, they still could do that. Another person that can't do it is anybody who's paid to provide you with support services. So that's like the person that maybe at a support living program, adult family home, they can't be your supporter. That is unless they are an immediate family member. So if they are in your family, they can do that.
Okay.
The last one is if you've got a vulnerable adult protection order against the person, they can't be your supporter. And that's pretty obvious why we don't want that. Somebody,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
All right. So this is such really cool information about supported decision making. Are there any times when it's not a good idea?
Yes, there are. And of course, one of them I mentioned is if somebody's if there's people that are trying to exploit a person, and you know, though a lot of people will try about anything to do that. I mean, people have been exploited through guardianship, they've been exploited through powers of attorney, and we're going to need to be vigilant to make sure that doesn't happen with support decision making, where somebody will attempt to get an agreement and you know, use that as a way to take advantage of a person. So that's not a good idea in that circumstance, obviously. Now, we'll say that there are some protections, like I was mentioning, one of which is that if somebody's doing that and you know about it, you have an obligation under the law to report that. So if you know that somebody is doing that, that's one. Another one is that at any time, the person who's the subject of who created the agreement, anytime they want, they can get rid of it. And I'll talk maybe a little bit more about that in a minute. But I guess the other times when it's not a good idea is when the person really doesn't have capacity to make the decision. Now, often, as I said, you can learn to make a decision. Somebody can give you a lot of information and you can make a decision. And that's really important. But sometimes you're just not able to do it. And in those circumstances, if you don't have that ability, then you can't create one. So there you go.
Unmute. Sorry about that, folks. My mute was not working. So it looks like we have another question from Mike and Paula Wind. How does supported decision making work when a person has limited ability to coordinate care needs? This appears to be for people that have lots of unpaid support.
I think support decision making can be useful for people in a lot of different circumstances. I think that there are a few of them, I guess, that I would say is that I mentioned earlier about the business about, you know, decision making something that we learn to do. Everybody does, and everybody do that over time. Some people need some support in learning to make decisions, and a great way to do it is through a supported decision-making agreement. So it's a good learning tool. It's a good tool for people that are in that transition age. It would be a great thing for schools to adopt and start using, during that transition age to help people start making decisions. Great way that they could be involved in their individual education plans with some support and be more independent over time to do that. So I think that it's one of those things where, as I said, you're going to need to have some capacity to be able to make decisions in order to be able to use this. I think it's a good tool for that, for as you know, as people learn who to do more decision making, and then also people are trying to get people to pay attention to what they have to say, and some trouble with that. So
All right. So, Luca asked a great question. What are ways to evaluate capacity for decision making?
well, that's a big question, a long question. So I'll give a few. I'll say some of the things about that I have to say. One thing is that one of the ways that people evaluate capacity to make decisions is they do it through experience. So an individual gets some experience at making decisions, and they learn. And from that, you can get some sense of what their capacity is. I mean, so it's one of the problems is you can't just sometimes this is a fallacy in decision making in evaluating whether or not people have capacity. What's their IQ? What's the person's IQ? Another one that I know that I don't want to set you off on this, Ivanova. Another one that people sometimes do is they'll look at somebody's supposed mental age or something. These are not good
That's
ways.
awful.
Yeah, those are not good ways, but they're sometimes used. We'll look at reports for guardianship. A lot of times that's the way that's done is you look at the report from a professional who does an evaluation and some assessments, and based on those kinds of criteria. So ways to evaluate capacity, I think, really involve experience and having an individual have that experience of learning and seeing whether or not they can make capacity and doing it from that. Now, having said that, I also have to look at, there are legal definitions of capacity in different circumstances. A common one that I mentioned, or I kind of talked around about, was medical decisions. And medical decisions, in order to make the legal definition of your ability to make your capacity to do that, is basically not understands the risks and benefits of whatever it is the doctor wants to do. So can you give informed consent? If the doctor explains it to you, can you understand that? So it's hard to evaluate that from somebody if you're, like I say, if you're speaking a language they can't really understand. A better way to evaluate it is to have somebody who makes sure the doctor explains it in very simple English. Now, what happens kind of generally, at least in my experience, is doctors, I'm not picking on doctors here, but you'll get an explanation and you may not understand every bit of it, but you don't have to really feed it back to the doctor that you understood what they were saying. If you're a person who doesn't have an obvious disability, they may just sort of take it for granted you get it. Whereas if you look like you have a disability, they're going to think, gee, he looks like he has a disability. I don't know. Is he going to understand this? And that's why I think, I think I answered your question more in terms of things that aren't the best way to evaluate whether or not somebody has the ability to make decisions. And I think really the best way is to give them a chance.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's see if we have any other questions from our audience. Looks like we don't. So I'm going to go back to our little list here. What if what if somebody wants to end a supported decision-making agreement? How would they be able to do that? Is it easier to get out of?
Yeah, it's really easy to get out of one of these. You basically need to revoke it, and that's what you can do. And you can revoke that in writing by saying you don't want it anymore. So it's a simple thing to do. Now, if you may want to change it rather than revoking it, in which case, by the way, you can revoke it. You don't have to have the permission of the supporter. You give the supporter notice so they understand, but you don't. It's not required that you get their consent at all. On the other hand, if you want to change it, then you do need to get the consent of the supporter that they agree to whatever change it is, because remember, they're agreeing to do something, and they need to understand what that is in order to be in agreement. And as I said, this is one of those circumstances where the supporter will also be agreeing, signing and have that signature witness that they agree to the agreement.
Thank you. So another question looks like we got from our epic audience. What if somebody wants to get out of a guardianship and start using supported decision making? How would they be able to do that?
That is a really excellent question. One of the things I'm hoping for is that as we move ahead with supported decision making, and as it gets more recognized, and hopefully as it does some good for people, is that in providing information to guardians about it, guardians will see circumstances where they could use supported decision making as a way to kind of move a person out into more independence. So as it stands under guardianship, whatever the guardian's required to do, if it's like a full guardianship, then they've got all the responsibilities for all kinds of different decisions. If it's just a medical guardianship, then maybe it's just the medical decisions. Financial, maybe just the financial. But whatever it is, what I'm trying to say is guardianship isn't one size fits all. Pieces of guardianship, a person can not have a guardian for anymore. And if a person learns how to take care of their money, and that's something that that might be a way that they could no longer need that, and perhaps they could just have a support decision-making agreement where they can handle. Now, of course, the guardian in doing that would have to kind of work with the court to do that, to make that work. But that is a way that I know from talking to my acquaintances in Texas, where they've been doing this a little longer, they have done. I mean, where people have moved out of a guardianship that way. I also have a friend who's a lawyer here locally actually in Everett, who worked with a family on a supported decision-making agreement. They asked for a guardianship, and they ended up making it, after they found out about supported decision-making, said, well, let's give that a try. I think that will work. And it's only been a few months, but so far it is. So that was a case where they avoided having a guardianship, but I think it can also be used to transition out. So that would be and that would be something that, in order to make that happen, the guardian would have to understand supported decision-making and want to give it a try. Or you'd have to convince the court the judge that that's what needed to happen. And that's something you could also ask for in a guardianship is I want you to take a look at this, and then ask the judge to look at that. It's pretty new. Judges haven't been trained on it yet, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. That is awesome. Thank you for answering that. So what's required to create an agreement? What do you need to have?
Well, the big thing that you need to have is at least one supporter. And that can be the hardest thing to get of all, is to find somebody that you really trust, who's also willing to agree to it, to agree to help you make decisions, help you get the information that you want. And I said there's a form that you can fill out on this now that that was created by the new statute. And that requires that you basically fill out something that's pretty comparable to the form. You don't have to have all the, exactly, but it needs to be pretty close. And you can also add things to what's in the form because it's pretty basic. But the form says that you're doing it of your own free will. Nobody's coercing you. You have to agree that you have to say that. Then you can say whether or not you want the supporter to assist if, and then they have some different things. Do you want to help them to help you with food and clothing, taking care of your health, taking care of your money, or other things? And you can specify what those are. You, in the agreement, you specify that, or you understand that the supporter is not going to make your decisions, but they will help you find the information you need to make decisions, understand the options that you're doing it, and also communicating whatever it is, telling whoever it is that you need to get to act what your decision is. There's also an important provision that says that if you want to, you can provide a release. This is something anybody can do anyway, but the form, it says there's a place where you can give a release so that the supporter can have access to your medical records. Now that's a legal requirement. You don't do, people can't look at your medical records unless you give them a release, unless they're your guardian.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then it has to be signed by you, signed by the supporter. Then 2 witnesses have to sign it, and you have to get somebody to notarize it. So that's all that's required. There's a little warning there that says, if you are aware that somebody is being abused, or that this agreement is being used by somebody who's exploiting or abusing the person, that you need to report that. But that's it.
Awesome. So where could people find more information about supported decision making?
Well, I'm really excited to report that you can find information in that form I mentioned, which is kind of set up as like an easy to fill out, you can print it out kind of form, and just basically a little guide that kind of answers the basic questions about sort of decision making at Washington Law Help. And there's a little slide on here that I think has been put up that says Washington Law Help, and it gives the web link, but also if you get there, because it's it's got a lot of stuff in it. If you type in the little place where it is search, if you type in supported decision making, you'll pop right up, and you'll get information that they've got on it. And I worked with the person that put that together, and she did I think a really excellent job. And Ivanova and I have done presentations with her before. Her name's Debbie Dorfman. But I think that's a really great place to go for information. Like I said, I'm not going to be at DRW anymore, but I'm easy to find, so I'm happy. I'm not going to provide specific advice to specific people about it, but if people have questions, you can email me, and I can help you out too. Right.
Awesome. And we have one question in the chat of how can I get supported decision making?
Yeah, and I'm hoping that over the next coming months, there'll be opportunities that people will provide others on this. I'm going to provide trainings wherever I can, where I can get someplace to talk about it. I'm hoping Ivanova will be interested in that as well, because I think a lot of us.
Oh yeah, I'll be there.
But as far as the individual support, that's something I think we ought to be talking to places like the Division of Developmental Disabilities or different providers or what have you about what they could do to assist people with this. But right now there isn't like I say, the law hasn't actually even gone into effect yet. I want to repeat again, that doesn't mean you couldn't. If you can put it together, you can put one together. I would advise you to use the form, just because it will be effective as that form after the effective day of the law. But there's nothing stopping you from creating an agreement right now if you want to do that. One other thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about resources, there is a really good website on this. It's called the National Resource Center for Supported Decision Making. So if you type in Supported Decision Making Resource Center or something like that in Google, you'll find it. They've got videos. They tell you about different places and other contacts. That's a good place to go to.
Awesome. Looks like we got another comment in chat. Thank you. So Teresa just wanted to say you two are excellent in presenting together great information. Thank you very much. Okay, so do you have any closing remarks that you would like to say, or if anyone in the audience has any other comments or questions, speak now or forever hold your peace. But yeah, so getting to
I'll say a few
the
things in closing if you want, if we got
Yeah.
time, a couple of minutes to do that, and then maybe other people will spring up with some things.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think this, I've worked on guardianship stuff for years, and trying to make one thing a little bit better or another in the guardianship law, or make alternatives a little more accessible for people and stuff. And that's fine, and I don't think that's bad to do, to try and make guardians more respectful of rights. There's some guardians that really do a great job of respecting people's rights, and that really necessary. And I'm not in any way saying that's not something that should be there. But there are a lot of people who don't really need guardianship, in my view, that have it. And if there's a way that people can look at other options where they can be supported and learn to make their own decisions, let's do it. That's why I'm just so excited that the legislature has had the wisdom to enact a law where they're saying, look at this first. You do it. And here's kind of a roadmap to it. It's not really hard to do. Somebody can do it. And I'm hoping that we'll put some resource into this. I mean, I know that's where I want to put my time rather than fooling around with the guardianship law. I want to do what I can to support people in being able to do this kind of decision making. And I hope others kind of feel that way too. I mentioned earlier one of them, which is, I think a lot of times you turn 18 and there's that pressure that families feel that they should get a guardianship for their loved one, and almost like it's a responsibility. That's, there are reasons why perhaps that is the way that needs to happen. Maybe it's going to need to happen. I don't know. But I know that very frequently they're told by the school that they need to get a guardianship. And that's just not true. And there's, in the law, it's really clear that you can do a power of attorney. If the individual agrees to it, they can create a power of attorney. And if they don't have the ability to make a power of attorney, they can do something different. Here's another option. And this is also an option that fits so well school curriculum, a transition, if they would. So that's another piece that I want to do. I think there's also advocates that I know in Texas, they're starting to do this for people that are getting older and losing capacity, and they've got guardianship, and maybe some older folks could benefit from this too. So I think they've started that process, and maybe that's a way to go too. I don't know. But anyway, I think it's an exciting possibility. So I hope you'll think about it some more, and I hope to hear more from people.
Awesome. So we have some comments. Parent to Parent King County said, I learned so much here. Thank you so much. This is Rachel Mohauser. Hey, Rachel. It's good to see you. Thank you for all the, and Benjamin Moore said, thank you for all the work you've done in the disability world. You too, Ivanova. This is great. And we have a comment. Another question, is it possible to see what was adopted into law in Washington? Can you email to Teresa Bodley? So there's an email there that we can definitely send you that information about the law.
Yeah, and I'll just in short, and you can find this, by the way, you don't have to get into law books. You can go to the Washington State website, and there's a place there where when you go into the Washington State Legislature website, there's a place there where they have the laws. And if you go to RCW 11.130, you'll find the new guardianship law, and 11.130 700 is decision making, and it's all written there. It's not very long. It's pretty easy to read. So, but anyway, we'll send that to you, Teresa. And I'm hoping that we're going to get a website up here that's got a lot more stuff on it in Washington. But we're not there yet, but we'll get there.
Well, it looks like Courtney has something she would like to say verbally, so I'm going to allow Courtney to talk. Take it away, Courtney.
The reason why I joined this webinar is to help my dad to get this information so he can support me in making my own decisions. So that's why I joined. And I wanted to tell you both I'm getting married, and I want to do this. I want to do the support the decision making, because I want my dad support of me losing some of my benefits, and he's not letting me, and I want to have that in effect.
That's awesome. Congratulations on your engagement.
Yeah.
And
We're not engaged yet, but we will be in 2 months.
oh, okay. Well, that's awesome. Congratulations.
And now I hope you know where you can go. There's a website you can go to get information on this. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to work for the policy director for the self-advocates and leadership, so I can work with legislators, so I can get more about it to them.
Oh, can I make
Awesome.
one? I want to make one thing. Thank you for that comment, because it triggered me to. By the way, this was Senator Peterson that was responsible for getting this into the law, just so you know. Senator Peterson was the sponsor of this legislation. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you, Senator Peterson.
yeah. And Representative Kilduff, by the way, would have done it, but Senator Peterson did it. So she gets to do, I think. I think she's leaving the legislature now, but
she's retiring.
Yeah.
I'm going to miss Christine Kilduff. This has been so wonderful talking to you, David, and learning more about supported decision making. We still have a couple more minutes, but it looks like I don't see any more questions. Maybe I can make a statement, is that I'm really excited about this legislation, and I hope that it will allow more people with disabilities to have a say in their decisions and get to have the chance to try out making their own decisions. And, it's always good to try. And, this allows a healthy dignity of risk way, allowing people to try and have some powers that they may not had before. And so this is a very powerful policy, and I really hope that it will be able to help a lot of people. And I hope that it changes people's perspective on, the ideas of who can make decisions and who can't. And I really want this to get out to our youth with intellectual and developmental disabilities, because I think it would be really good to encourage our youth to learn how to make their own decisions and feel that empowerment. So I'm really excited about this, and I want to thank you again, David Lord. Thank you to our amazing audience for asking really great questions and just being awesome. And so this has been Conversations with Ivanova. Thank you for attending, and this webinar will be recorded and posted on our social media. And so if you thought, oh man, I wish my friend or colleague got to see this, that still is possible. And I will look at the posts for those, and so the people that are asking questions in the comments that they didn't get to ask here, I will try to figure out a way for us to be able to answer them through the comments and social media for those who weren't be able to attend today. So thank you everyone who was able to attend. This has been really cool. And so now we're going to say goodbye. So thank you, David, again. And let's have a wonderful rest of October.
Bye.